Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds trying to find the secrets of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere as we reread its entirety from Book 1 to Book 16 billion. Today, we are joined by Swiggity Swoo.
Good men can make terrible kings.
John.
I'm down now!
Kay.
Hey, I don't have a good fun quote ready.
Neither did I, so I had to recycle one from last week.
I got mine in at the last second. Some might say I even fumbled it.
And I'm ReaderWarrior, and today we are going over the last 5 chapters of Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, Part 2, Ghosts in the Mist.
Heck
We're
yeah.
just going to jump straight onto it, aren't we? Chapter 23.
All right, chapter 23 is my territory this week. So it starts with Sazed telling the gang about the 20,000 kolos that Ellen's old friend Lee Cal is commanding right now. And they're super scared of these kolos. These kolos are rough. These kolos are brutal, okay? They've taken out armies twice their size. Okay, you don't want to mess with them. We saw that already. And they have virtually no idea how they're going to deal with this. So they pretty much decide to sideline that. Sazed tells them that he thinks something else is going on too. The mists are coming back during the daytime. And he tells them all about the horrible experience he had in the Eastern Dominance with the cannibalism and the dead bodies and the people hiding in their hovels from the mist. Most of the group is skeptical about this, except for Vin, who doesn't shoot him down immediately. Allrianne shows up, and Ellen notices that she has nice clothes on, but her hair is made to look as though she was sleeping, which he finds to be suspicious. And there's a funny moment where he talks to Vin about this, and Vin is like, "Oh, you noticed that too? Like, I'm so proud of you."
Which is really funny, because remember back in Final Empire when she just thought that trick would work on Kelsier?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And she was waiting by the door,
Well,
or
and
listening.
it's also fun because he's like, I'm thinking like Vin would. And she,
Which
and she
reminds me back
confirms
to
it.
earlier when she was taking the notes, and he came in and he was like, "Are you taking notes? Vin?" So, there's nothing they can do about the mists either, is there? Sazed eventually decides he's exhausted and wants to go to sleep, but when he gets to his room, Tindwyl is there, waiting for him. And I think it's important to note here that Sazed is also doubting himself a little bit about the mists, but mostly I think it's because if he's wrong, that is going to be placing such a burden on Ellen and everyone else. And I like that he's so concerned with not stressing everyone out over something that might turn out to be false. So while he's thinking about this, he has this line of, "What if I'm imagining connections that don't exist?" And that really reminded me of like our podcast sometimes.
We don't do that. It just looks like it.
So yeah, Tindwyl's waiting for him there, and she's basically asking him why he stopped teaching people in the Eastern Dominance. And he says it's because there's some things happening in Luthadel, namely the mists, that he needs to be there to deal with. And I really like how he stands up for himself and he like stands up for his beliefs here.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a little bit of exchange. She kind of like she says something like, "Oh, I don't understand you," says it. Like, the people want to look up to you, but they can't. You always defy what the terrorists want you to do. And he says, "Hey, last time I defied what the terrorists wanted me to do, we ended up overthrowing the final empire." So
Yeah, there.
what do you have to say about that? So she leaves, but before she does, she grabs him by the hand and he pulls it away in a tender little moment. And that's the end of the
Oh,
chapter.
no.
Voila.
That was very. I don't have a lot of big notes for this. I just got a lot of tiny little details.
Do you want to say though that I like that Tindwyl is very much like, you could be a leader if you wanted to. Like, if you chose to follow what the Synod is saying, you should be one of the leaders among us. Instead, you're the one of the loudest voices against what's going on.
Yeah, and that's what I like about this part is even though he has his own self-doubts, he still is like standing up for what he believes in.
And it's us.
He'd rather be a fool and save people than, get like positions of power or anything out of it.
Mm.
And it shows that he's always going to follow his own beliefs. He doesn't really care. And it shows also more that, like, Sazed is a rebel. Like, we tend to kind of forget that a little bit because he's just so, like, calm and, like, he's very respectful. But he's a rebel. Like, he is very much, like, just as rebellious as the other people in the crew.
Yeah, I love it. I love that it challenges your idea of what a rebel is.
Yeah.
So, two notes that came out weird to me is that Sazed spent 10 years working to overthrow the final empire. 10 years, and yet he had only known Breeze for like the past 2.5 or 1.5.
That is weird. I wonder what he was doing in that time.
Like, was he working overthrow it without Kelsier, and Kelsier found out and invited him to join the crew?
That was just, I think, established previously that Kelsier had found Sazed and then asked him to join the crew.
Yeah, but that's still a lot of. That's about 8 years of Sazed being a rebel.
Rebel without a cause. Oh yeah.
Like, that's a pretty large amount of time. I want to know what Sazed was doing.
Yeah, I'm curious too.
Right?
At the very beginning. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, what would a terrorist steward do, like, to rebel against the final empire? Like,
and not enough that he didn't get in any real trouble, though.
So we know he wasn't putting Chuldung in people's soup.
It was just like tiny little annoyances, not really acts of rebellion. Like he puts in the wrong tea.
This will destroy them, I think.
Excuse me, I'm sure he was connected with the Scott Underground somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ska Underground and the Ska Rebels, I would assume.
Yeah, well, Sazed kind of strikes me as the type who would be, like, maybe providing, like, care or some kind of humanitarian services to, like, Ska.
True.
Maybe instead of killing noblemen or whatever.
Yeah. At the very beginning, we've got, when they're all being woken up, we've got Spook flirting with one of the handmaids.
I had that written down too.
I find it hilarious. And Vin's arm is around Ellen's waist, which that kind of reads weird for me.
Propriety be damned.
Like, usually it's the man doing it, so it's really just showing how much Vin just cares for Ellen. Like, it's not even that she's sitting on his lap this time.
I'm just picturing Austin Powers. She's a man, baby! Yeah! She's not. It's just, I have one twisted mind.
I just kind of pictured it because she's so small that that she's like wrapped her arm around his waist and his arm is like over her shoulder.
Ah.
Resting his elbow on her head. My girlfriend hates it when I do that.
And we learn about Breeze's real name, Ladrian. And I had a quote I forgot to have it out and ready, but mine is, are we going to go off on even more tangents than usual tonight?
That doesn't apply to anybody we know.
No.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And my last one is Orsier stretching, which I just, whenever you see a dog stretch, you've always got to say big stretch. Just wonder if you see the wolfhound do it, does everybody else think it?
I mean,
everybody but Vin.
Yeah, because Vin knows the truth.
Yeah.
And that was the last of my notes. Spoiler-free ones.
Yeah, right. I have one more for spoiler section, but you pretty much called out what I was going to say. I love that moment where, I mean, it's just like a line, but it just says Spook was unsuccessfully flirting with one of the kitchen staff. Like,
Yeah.
It's so funny to me.
Unsuccessfully.
That's Spook this entire book, trying to flirt and just failing.
And he's totally trying to be this smooth operator, like, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's also a good setup for Spook in the next book.
Ooh.
And that's all I got to say about that.
Foreshadowing.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. So, anything else for chapter 23?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I got chapter 24. It starts off with the epigraph. He commanded kings, and though he sought no empire, he became greater than all who had come before. Vin sits alone atop Keep Venture, thinking about what Sazed warns. With Braun, she can feel the Mistspirit and something else. She takes out a page from from Alendi's logbook and reads how he felt the same exact things. Zane was looking for Vin. He hopes that she will be what convinces him to leave. Boy, my notes are really horribly written today. He heads to Keep Venture and finds her watching over his foolish brother. Exactly how he puts it. Zane tries to stay unnoticed, but she sees him, in quotes, much to his surprise. Vin tells him she's not in the mood and notices Orsier tense up at his arrival. Zane asks why she stays with somebody who uses her when she has all the power. Zane shows his back and asks what she would do if there would be no repercussions. Vin first thinks about following the thumping, but ultimately says she would kill everyone who threatened Ellen. But she won't because Ellen's diplomacy could still work. Zane comments how he might ask her to kill for him and compares their relationship with that of the coins of a Mistborn. He then leaves. I'm really dumbing down my notes because they tend to be a little bit long.
I mean, these chapters are very, much chit-chatty. There's a lot of chit-chatty.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of back and forth, but there's a lot of meaning behind everything they're saying, too. So it's tough to know, what all is super important and what needs to get cut out.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, can we talk about that moment where he does turn his back on her and then she throws a coin down and he immediately looks back over his shoulder? I
think she was testing to see if he was pushing steel.
Oh, you think
with
so?
The coin. Yeah, I think she was testing to see if the coin would go flying.
No, I think she was testing to see if he would react to it or not, to see if he actually trusted her.
And to see if he was paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
If he was really scared of her, though, he probably would be pushing away with his steel, just in case.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I really kind of liked how we see a bit of, and this is one of the things people always hate about this, is it kind of is setting up Zane to be Vin's new love interest. But it seems to be more of Magneto from the X-Men. How Zane views the Mistborn as more powerful and more deserving to rule. And we see that later in chapter 27. But this chapter on a reread, it screamed very much Zane as Magneto. We have the power. We're the ones who can push coins and change emotions and become strong as 10 men.
which is the same beat he's been pushing every time we see him interacting with Vin. But I'm glad that you called out chapter 27 because I noticed that too when I was reading, and not to get too ahead, but like he says it in this chapter, you know, what if he asks you to kill? And that's kind of exactly what Ellen ends up, that's kind of exactly the trap Ellen ends up falling into later on, is when he realizes that she is
implying that.
Yeah, is that she is a weapon and that she is a force that he can use to leverage. So this just like perfectly sets that up for later.
Mm-hmm. Anything else for 24?
There's a lot of push and pull going on there, and none of it's Elementic.
Is that a pun?
Yes.
Well done.
Thank you.
Alright. So are you ready for chapter 25 then?
Yes.
Indeed.
Okay. So in this chapter, Vin gets woken up by a small bark from Orsur and quickly, grab down some metal vials and grabs her daggers that she keeps under her pillow at night.
You never did that as a kid?
And gets ready to fight. Only to see that it's Tindwyl. And Tindwyl has come to wake her up because she is going to take Vin shopping because she's decided that Vin needs a dress for her meeting with Strapventure. And she's kind of like, you can come or you cannot. I really don't care, but you should come. Even if you don't want to buy anything, you can at least look at the dresses. And so Vin agrees to come. So she gets dressed, she goes downstairs and sees that not only is Tindwyl there, but Allrianne is also there.
Who's quickly becoming a favorite character.
I love Allrianne.
She's annoying. She's annoying, but she's hilarious.
No, she's so fun. I love her. She's not annoying. She's just she's Allrianne. She's just funny. But so she is there and she's very excited to go shopping. And you also see Spook, who has also been dragged into the soil.
Who's very much the opposite.
Who is very much the opposite. He's not excited at all to be coming along.
He tries to make the best of it.
He does. He flirts with Allrianne a little bit.
He tries.
And
fares. Sorry.
I love the detail that he was like up early trying to sneak some food and he got caught.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and Tindwyl basically, you're with us now.
Oh.
It's like some posing over there.
I love his nicknames for people in this book because earlier he was calling clubs like Uncle Grumpy and like oh god, what was another one? He had very similar kinds of like nicknames for people and that he would just change on the fly. I think that's probably the most fun element of Spook. Sorry, tangent over.
Yeah, you can. So they go to Camden Street to go shopping, to go to a dress shop. And on the way over, Allrianne is trying to get to know Vin. She's trying to talk to Vin because she's like, Vin's another girl. I can talk to another girl. I'm excited. And Vin is like, don't talk to me. Giving her just like short, like 1-word answers, like very much not participating in the conversation.
We are not the same.
I wish we had seen this from Allrianne's point of view.
Dude,
she's trying so hard.
Allrianne is totally the peppy cheerleader who's always optimistic, and Vin is totally the grouchy goth girl.
Yeah. Allrianne has to be friends with everybody.
Yes. And Allrianne is like, and Allrianne unknowingly steps on a landmine, and she's like, "Did you grow up far from court?" And she's like, and it's
About
like,
as far as you can.
"I'm Ska Allrianne, not a noble."
Ooh.
She's like, which Allrianne takes very well, honestly, because she's just like, "Oh, okay." Like, it throws her for a second, and then she's like, "Oh, okay, Breeze is half Ska as well."
Which, yeah, that can be taken a little bit poorly, but we gotta remember this is this. Even in our history, like blacks and whites didn't get along immediately well once Lincoln changed the law.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of misstep. Like even her first comment, like, "Oh, that must." Like, what did she say? "Oh, I'm sorry about that," or something. She said a comment,
She's like, "Oh, you poor thing."
Yeah, she kind of
which
makes it sound like it's a condition that she has.
It's
yeah,
like, "Oh, you poor thing. Well, no wonder you don't know how to dress."
Like as if better couldn't be expected from her.
Yeah. Yeah.
which that shows like the racism level. But then you've also got in the middle between not accepting and accepting, which is you found a way to connect with it, in which Allrianne has Breeze.
Yeah. Yeah. So they make it to Kenton Street, and it is. And Vin notes that the food is getting really expensive in the city
5 boxings for a carton of apples.
for a bin of aging apples. So, which is,
It's
not
funny
great.
though because it's totally arbitrary to us because we don't know what a boxing is worth. She might as well have said like 12 gargle blasts for a bucket of nargle pennies. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Although
But,
we do now have some point of reference, and thus we could work backwards to try to calculate the conversion rate of boxings to US dollars based on a box of rotten apples.
Yeah.
or we could go on Coppermind.
and they have probably already done the math for us.
We'll be back over these short messages.
Alright, I'm gonna continue talking. So, Vin and Tindwyl start talking about Allrianne, and Tindwyl is like, "Oh, it's so sad she hasn't gotten to go shopping in so long," and Vin is like, "How is that sad? It's not really. Like, I don't have any sympathy for a girl who has been tragically taken from her dresses." And Tindwyl is kind of like, "Don't be so harsh to her. Like, she's pampered, but like she's still a person. Like, and she was taken away from something that she obviously clearly enjoys a lot. So it's like, give her some sympathy." Like,
Yeah.
and I also start talking about, like, why is it that you stopped wearing dresses, and like, and why haven't you married Ellen yet?
Ooh.
Is brought up. And Vin does answer. And she kind of says that he can't marry her because she's not right for him. That he deserves someone who's more like a queen and less like a bodyguard. And we also find out that the night of Ellen's marriage proposal was the night that Vin stopped wearing dresses. And she stopped dressing like a woman.
The deep implications of that.
Yeah.
The foibles of teenage romance.
I don't really remember if it ever so if this memo ever comes back with a kind of follow-up paragraph where it's explained more, but just makes me think of like, oh, I gotta stop wearing these dresses because he thinks I'm some noblewoman, and I'm just like a ska.
Yeah, she does it out of her wanting to protect him in her poor, delusioned way.
Mhm.
Well, we'll talk about it more when we get to my chapter.
So
Because there's more to come of this.
Tindwyl does point out that people are much more complex than they first seem. So Min needs to remind that, and that she herself is more complex than she might be thinking of herself as. Like she can be more than one thing. So they go and they try on some dresses. Vin gets to try on a dress and she dances around in it a little bit, and the dressmaker is like awed at her moving in the dress because he says that she is like a passing breath because she's so graceful in it.
And I just love Allrianne in the background trying to get attention.
Yeah. So they end up picking a dress and a style for the dress for it to look like. So they make the sleeves. So they take out some of the petticoats to make it like slimmer. They make the sleeves wider so that she can put things like her metal vials inside the sleeves. The bodice is easier to move in, not as stiff. So she can move around easily in it. Which is
So
all.
we don't have a... Sorry.
You're good.
I was just saying, so we don't have a repeat of when she killed...
And Chanelariel.
Yeah, Shan.
Yeah, and had to rip her dress off. Yeah. Yes, so she picks out a dark blue color for the dress, which she notes is very similar to the color that she was wearing when her and Ellen first met. Cute. So, and then Ben looks out the window and she sees that the Ska have found her. And they are all gathered outside the shop. There's a big group of them gathered outside the shop. And her instinct is to run away. But Tindwyl and Allrianne convince her that she should go outside and talk to them. And Allrianne goes with her to help support her. She's being nice. Allrianne is trying to be friendly. She's trying to make friends with Ben.
I do want to say it's not just any group of Ska, it's the Ska that are a part of the religion of the survivor.
Yes, and they are wanting to hear from her about what's going to happen to the city. And she wants to tell them that everything's going to end horribly. Like, she kind of wants to crush their hopes. But instead, she tells them that everything is going to be fine. That Ellen is a good king, and he's going to be able to handle it, and that they're going to talk to his father to try to make a deal to keep him from attacking the city. And they get upset at this, but she casts a big soothing on them and kind of forces them to, like, not be mean to Ellen. And at this point, right after she walks back into she's able to walk back into the dressmaker's shop, and then she hears a bell start ringing, or the drums. And the city wall is under attack. Dun dun dun.
I was wondering if we were all gonna do that. Yeah. Well, they had to have their dang drums.
Right?
Don't you have what happens at the wall? Okay.
I do.
Oh, okay. I thought you were stopping there.
I thought it was a dramatic place to pause for a second.
I was waiting for all of us to go dun
pause
dun
for
dun.
Effect.
So we now flip to Ellen, who's on the wall, and so his father's soldiers have started attacking the wall. So they've thrown up hooks. They're trying to climb up. There are coin shots shooting coins at the archers on the wall. There are thugs with the battering ram trying to break down the gates. And Ellen is like, "This is it. This is it. We're done. It's over. We lost." And then Ben shows up, and she helps rally the troops, and she's about to jump down and go fight before Clubs is like, "Stop. This isn't an actual assault." And then Straff's army pulls back, and Clubs explains that Straff was just testing their defenses to see how quickly they would respond. That it wasn't an actual attack because they weren't putting up ladders to actually scale the walls.
I love that. Like, I love this image I have. I don't know if you guys are picturing the same thing, but it's like the drums are happening in the distance, and Ellen is on the wall, and he's freaking out, and he's like, "Oh my god, they got ladders, and they got ropes, and they got thugs are battening the doors down." And then Vin was there, and it's just like she just shows up and does like a superhero landing, and she's like cutting ropes off, and she's like commanding people, and just like, I love that image. Just like,
see, I don't think Vin commands people, does she?
Well, she doesn't command them, but she kind of like, they rally behind her.
She does all the work, basically.
Well, she stops the coin shots from hitting the archers, so the archers are able to actually like gather behind her and actually start shooting down.
I mean, that's a good point. She's never really been like a combat leader. She's never been like a commander in that way. Like, she leads by example, but she's not the kind of person to give orders like that.
Yeah. So, but yes, so and the chapter ends there when they're gonna continue to have their meeting with Straff as planned on the next day.
In which we get this little thing of what Straff is thinking from Ellen's point of view about how I could take this at any time I want. So I would like to add this to my hashtag #StabStraff notation.
When I was going through these chapters, I had this ongoing joke in my head of like, what if Straff is nowhere near as smart as people think he is? Just like what if that was just a mistake? Like, he didn't mean to attack. Oh no, wait, pull everyone back. No. And Ellen says, like, he just wanted me to think he could have the city anytime he wants. My dad is a genius.
Well,
It's
and
like
that's the thing.
Why is Ellen
Straff?
Batman?
Straff isn't the smart one, but he knows how to hire smart people. He knows how to get smart people to work for him who can like actually do the army stuff.
It's like that one anime blooper where like Haru is completely focused. They have nothing else on their mind but what's going on in front of them. Life is like a hurricane.
Oh man.
Should we move on?
I really forgot this chapter was so early in the book. Like, I forgot how much of the book that I remember is in this part. Like, chapter 27, the one I had been looking forward to, is coming up real quick. You've got the fun chapter with Breeze returning. You've got Vin opening back up to wearing dresses again in this one.
Yeah, that's a good point. These are some awesome moments. Do you think it's because we're just getting closer to the Sanderlanche?
We're not even close. We're done with part 2. There's like 6 parts in this book.
I know, but once that Sanderlanche starts going, it's like it's hard to keep track.
That's true. I will say, going back to the very beginning, I don't. What is a lady in waiting?
A lady in waiting is a noble woman who would work for a. I actually know the answer to this. Sorry. So a lady in waiting is usually a lesser noble woman who would help a queen or a princess who would work with them. So like and help them with dressing and taking care of themselves and things like that, because you would always need someone to help you get dressed because you couldn't do it yourself.
What's the difference between that and like a handmaid, though?
They're very similar.
Because I'm like, in reference, like I'm thinking,
a handmaid, I think, is someone who is not noble.
yeah,
Cannot be of noble birth.
like in my mind, I'm thinking for the handmaid, you've got, if you've seen Arthur, you've got Guinevere for Morgana, and then the lady in waiting from the Tangled show, you've got. Why can I not remember her name anymore? But you've got a character in that who's, and I've always been confused on what the difference is between them.
So a handmaiden, I think, is someone who is not of noble birth versus a lady in waiting who is of noble birth because they are a lady.
Yeah. You were really happy to jump on that question.
I was like, I know the answer to this question.
My other comment is, she says, I didn't. Allrianne, before they left, she says, I didn't bring much, just 100 boxings.
You know
how many barrels of apples that could buy? 20.
At these exorbitant costs that they have right now.
But like, also, she compares that to like, that's not even gonna buy me like any dresses. 100 boxings isn't enough to buy a dress.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That doesn't surprise me.
Like, I would think like 100 boxings gets you a dress.
Well, if you think about it, all of those dresses had to be hand sewn.
Yeah. You're doing it for the king and his court.
Yes, who can afford it?
Wait, is a boxing more than a clear mark?
Clear mark's not even in the same universe.
Well,
that was a joke.
They say a clear chip is enough to buy a loaf of bread. So a boxing is more than a clear chip, but probably similar to a clear mark.
Okay, but we're also comparing the exasperated price of these apples during
a siege, right?
During a siege when they're not getting anything. So it's not a good ratio.
The demand for dresses would have significantly decreased after the fall of the Final Empire. So the price would have probably decreased as well, yeah.
The one time I want Sanderson to focus on the economy. You've got Spook is now also clear. We see him burning tin. To Vin's dress being blue and white. Is that where you got the idea for our season 1 logo?
Something like that.
Because I also know those colors are Ellen's house colors. Vin has. I love Tindwyl being kind to Vin because she's had too much harshness in her life. And we care about poor little Spook.
Yeah, Spook in like book 2. Like honestly, Spook anytime he's on the page is just so funny to me. I think he's my favorite like comic relief character, even more than Ham and Breeze.
I very much like Spook. And I like that he's kind of in his Nightwing phase. Like, we're always comparing Vin to Batman, but right now, I feel like Spook is Nightwing, where he's broken away, he's come on his own, he's come back to help, and he's flirting with everybody.
So I have a question for this chapter. If you're doing the screenplay for a Well of Ascension movie, does this chapter make it into the final cut? The dress shop.
It has to.
scene.
Yes, because of the ska
Yeah.
forming their little cult and being all like, "Ooh, lady here, let her touch my baby." That sounded wrong. Bless my baby.
See, I don't want to talk about it without spoiling too much, but I could almost say no. Because you can basically just have her opening up a chest later in the next chapter and pulling out this dress. Or maybe saying, like, Sazed comes in and says, Ellen had this made for you. Or something.
I
I
haven't
think
worn a dress since the night he asked me to marry him.
the establishment of her as a religious person is more important than the actual action of the scene. Like, especially if you go beyond the original trilogy and into the sequels.
Yeah, but
Not Star
couldn't
Wars.
you have also set this up the last time she was in the square?
They kind of do. Is this not her first time with the...
But this is her first time actually talking to them.
Right.
Yeah.
And it has to be observable that it's escalating, right? Because as we get into... This is very spoilery. We should talk about this later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you say something just to cap that off, though?
As we get into later parts of the story, the cult of the survivor, or the church of the survivor, as it eventually becomes a bigger and bigger force in Scadrian existence.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Is that it for chapter 25? Okay. John, you got chapter 26.
Okay, so in the epigraph we have, he was forced into war and claimed he was no warrior, yet he came to fight as well as any man. That doesn't really sound like the Lord Ruler or Alendi. Like,
Well, it's describing
Rashik-
Alendi.
it's supposed to be. But if we stop and think about it for a minute, Rashik really wanted war, especially with Helenium. And Alendi, he was kind of resigned to the idea. He didn't necessarily want it, but he was like, this is kind of how it's just going to be.
I disagree on you.
I think we're starting to get hints and bits. But anyway, we start out with Vin and Orsur discussing the virtues of meeting with Straff in his camp, and Orsur thinks it's a bad idea, and Vin is like, it's the only way. And they have a little bit of a cute moment where Vin is like asking Orsur's opinion about the dress. He's like, why ask me? And she's like, well, I care about your opinion. And he's like, I always thought they were kind of pointless and frivolous. And she's like, yeah, but they're fun to wear.
You're a guy.
Right. That was the other thing. She's like, you're a boy. And he's like, how do you know? It's tough to tell with Khandra. And she's like, I can tell. You're a boy, Khandra.
That was so funny.
It was kind of a cute moment. And there's a couple of cute moments in this chapter.
It's your personality, Orsur.
Also, I'd like to point out that Orsur has definitely worn a dress before and disguised as a woman. And that's why he's like, I don't like dresses. They're annoying.
That's a very good point.
He probably hated every minute of it, having to wear a dress.
I wonder what's worse, the dress or dog bones.
Oh boy. Let's just rub it in and make him be a dog wearing a dress.
You got the Christmas special where they
dance
put
like one of those little chihuahuas in the circus. Anyway, they talk some more, and eventually Vin tells him that she wasn't planning on bringing him along for this meeting. And he's kind of like bummed out for a second there. But then he just kind of lets it be. And Vin's like, I was really hoping he'd put up more of a fight. And I'm like, but the fact that he was disappointed not to be going at all is kind of a triumph. Like, he's starting to care.
He's starting to believe.
Yeah, anything over
Let's see.
indifference is an improvement in his attitude towards Vin.
Yeah.
Right. So eventually Ham comes along, and he tries to convince Vin and Ellen that he needs to go along with them as, like, extra muscle to help them get out if things go awry, and Ellen's like, no, one man's not going to make a difference against an army, you dork. Nobody's going but us. And they talk a little more about the armies, and, you know, Ellen not so subtly hits on Vin, which is fine because they're dating or whatever they're doing. There are a few cute little lines about no kissing or he'll ruin her makeup and that kind of thing, which is fun because, hey, look, she's got girl mode on, you know. Eventually, though, Ellen does say something kind of profound. He says, I love you, Vin, but I would love you however you are. The question is, how do you like yourself? And Vin kind of goes,
Huh.
oh. Huh. And then she sort of changes the subject a little bit. And starts asking about Straff, which totally kills the mood, right?
Well, also before that, there's a really good quote that I like a lot that I just wanted to say, that Ellen tells Vin, and it's the don't worry that you aren't giving people what they want. Give them who you are, and let that be enough.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You know, the story of Cars 2.
Which no adult has seen unless they have small children.
I love that movie.
I think I've watched it once.
I can't stop thinking about this quote from an earlier chapter where Vin is thinking to herself, I was just put here to kill things. And, like,
yeah.
What is her perception of herself right now? Because it's not looking good.
No.
Much like Cars 2.
Okay. I know there's one where the hillbilly pickup truck becomes a spy. Is that 2?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I think
okay.
so.
Okay, movie night tomorrow.
Definitely don't remember that. Maybe I haven't seen Cars 2.
I think I'd remember that.
So eventually, they arrive at Straff's camp and find out he's using obligators to help run his camp and his cities, which definitely makes sense. You know, they're kind of used to that sort of role, and who better than somebody who already knows how to do the job? Which is basically what Ellen says. He's not surprised Straff likes powerful tools, and he always keeps a condor around. And they finally get to his tent, and they convince him that, oh, hey, there's actually going to be dinner or whatever. He even tells a servant to inform the chef that there will be 3 for dinner tonight. I
like that because it's a very subtle line, but it's kind of implied that the chef was waiting to hear, like, whether or not it would just be Straff.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, are they even gonna make it to dinner?
Well, and it's also, like, kind of a question of, was Straff planning to give Vin a meal?
Ooh.
Oh, definitely not.
I never even thought of that.
I don't think he was even expecting Vin to show up. I think at most he was expecting Ellen.
Yeah, I don't know.
Either
way.
I think he did know she was coming, though, because we had that joke about, oh, can my girlfriend come over?
Yeah.
Well, that was from Ellen's, though.
Yeah,
but they were in communication, some through letters or something.
I don't think Ellen would have said that.
No, but he would have informed Straff that Vin was going to be joining them as well.
Wait, didn't he actually say something about he wanted to introduce him to someone very special?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I remember that now. Which is a great segue because, of course, the first thing Straff does when he actually speaks to Vin is to very overtly and very rudely hit on her, like,
objectify
she's cute, like,
yeah.
Which is important in 2 minutes.
And Ellen is like, he's so calculating.
Right. Ellen is like kind of shaking in his boots a little bit because he's not a full not weenie yet, you know.
You're gonna regret that in my chapter.
So Vin starts like tweaking his emotions a little bit, and he calls her on it, and she's like, at first Ellen is like kind of surprised that he noticed and like that Vin wasn't subtle enough or whatever, and then he realizes, oh, she wanted him to notice, like she wanted him to know he was she was messing with his emotions.
Yeah, she hustled him.
Yeah, pretty much. And
Vin's greatest trick.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because that's exactly what she would do with, when she was scamming back for Cayman. Like, she would tinker with the emotions of people a little bit. And so Straff and Ellen talk politics a little bit, and like Ellen lays out his plan for the city and how he's going to let Straff take over in such a way that they both get to save face and all of this stuff. And actually, when you're reading it, it's kind of like, yeah, that sounds like a pretty reasonable plan. Like, this could work. And then Straff is like, no, if I wanted it, I'd just take it. And the rest be damned, pretty much. And then he plays his master stroke, and a ska servant girl who looks like Vin 3 years ago wanders in wearing a dress and timidly sits down next to Straff. And Ellen is like, you sly bastard.
Hashtag stab Straff. Okay, I got a comment about Hazel. That's how I'm pronouncing her name. I think, since Swiggity brought up the idea of the movie earlier, I think that in the movie, Hazel should be played by the same actress who plays Vin, just with more makeup and maybe more padding. But, like, you never actually see her face. Like, she's always looking down.
I think it should be the stunt double.
Oh, that would also...
With the mustache.
I like that idea, but there's no way she's making it into the movie.
I think it should be an important note, because especially what's coming up in Reader's chapter, this is kind of like one of the things that sets it off. But anyway, yeah. I'm getting ahead of myself. So they talk a tiny bit more, and Straff is like, all right, women, get out. It's time for the men to talk. And, I missed a bit. Vin kind of blurts out while they're talking that they never had the ATM and they don't know where it is. And then Straff is like, all right, you need to leave. And she eventually kind of just goes and waits outside the tent, which, there's no way a full Mistborn can't hear what's going on inside that tent.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the chapter. She goes outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to the good part.
There's so much in this chapter and in my chapter that we want to just talk about, but we just can't.
There's a spoiler section for a reason. Hold your thoughts.
Well, no, I'm not even saying like that. I'm saying like there's so much that they do that is a really nice detail.
Oh, sure.
Like them doing the 4D chess, Lelouch versus his older brother, Schneisel, of just them playing each other over and over again. There's so much of it.
And then, yeah, you're right, because it's like, there's this whole moment where Straff reveals that him and Seth have been in communications, and that him and Seth are actually working together. But then Ellen realizes, that would never happen because my dad is too greedy. He would never agree to split the kingdom with anyone.
He would never share power.
And then Ellen's like, he just casually drops like, oh yeah, well, what about the Koloss army that you didn't even know about? Like, you're right. It's so good. It is that classic scene of these two intellectuals sitting down.
You've got both sides raising their bets over and over and over again.
It makes me think of the scene from The Princess Bride. Which cup is the poison in?
Going back to the beginning,
Ash fell from the
Horse-
sky.
I want to comment on the Vin calling Orsier a boy Condra, like just to get ahead of like transphobic comments. Like this isn't a matter of non-binary or how they view it. It's that in this time period they have the two genders, boy, girl, and yeah, they can alternate between them, but they are set in these are the two options. Back then, they don't have the concepts yet. I love the whole thing with Vin and Ellen in Carriage Ride. And what I specifically like is Vin giving her warnings, just like back in Chapter 1 of The Final Empire. Here's what you got to do. Here's my thoughts on it. Here's this new point of view. Very much how she was like, back at the very beginning, like, hey, these people are too smartly dressed. Or
When Ellen is asking her, and it kind of reminds you back during that planning chapter in the Final Empire, when Kelsier first asked her, kind of like, what would you do, Vin, if you had to fight somebody stronger than you? Yeah, I thought of that too. That's a good call out.
Anything else for Chapter 26?
It was kind of like, why did she go through all this trouble of getting a dress and like getting all pampered just to meet with Straff in what is essentially a war camp, right?
Because
they're having dinner.
Well, no, I mean, well, yes, but if you think about it, she is kind of the queen to be in a sense, and which makes her an ambassador to a foreign dignitary. Like, she's literally playing house politics. You gotta, like, appearances matter, especially to someone who's entrenched in that way of thinking like Straff would be. So she's really playing to his expectations.
You've got to dress the part to play the part.
Just to show that they're taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or at the very least, they're I don't want to say respecting, but they're doing it from what he would expect.
They're playing by the rules.
Yeah.
Or at least making a show of it.
I can dig on that.
Anything else for 26? Okay, I got 27. I got a lot of notes because there's a lot that happens this chapter. But please, if you are going purely based on this video, go reread the chapter. I have seriously dumped a lot of this down. There's a lot of, Ellen calling out Straff, Straff calling out Ellen, them raising each other. There's a lot of that. So, Straff threatens Ellen, but Ellen calls his bluff, referencing the Koloss army. Straff says he wants the city and says if he had stayed, he would have been king. He even compliments Ellen. Ellen doesn't back down, though, and even comments on how kidnapping them won't win him anything. Straff realizes Ellen is playing him and starts threatening him instead. Ellen realizes that instead of pretending to be small, he should be big and let Straff tear him down. Straff threatens to do horrible things to Vin that I don't want to think about, and Ellen laughs, probably, not even faking it, calling him a pig. He says that if he dies, so will Straff. Anything for that section? We should do this section by section, because this is going to take me a while.
Just how great it is that Ellen laughs in his father's face at the idea of him trying to force himself on Vin. Like, yeah, how would that go down? Oh yeah, he'd get murdered.
Mm-hmm. Hashtag stab Straff. I hate him so much. Anything else for this section? For audio listeners, Kay just did a knife emoji. Vin had her daggers out and was milliseconds away from bursting in. She listens as Ellen says Vin let him feel her soothing, and she burns zinc and brass writing and soothing Straff as Ellen comments on certain emotions. She even Duralumens soothes away all of them. And this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire book.
Yes.
Zane
Yes.
appears, asking why he can never sneak up on her, and listens in. Ellen says Vin will kill them all, and Zane remarks that they are the tools, but Vin says he doesn't actually mean it. You know, to Zane, the enemy Mistborn, she's telling him all this stuff. the mists spin around Vin and Zane as they verbally fight over this Ellen is using her or her notoriety, loving her or loving her usefulness. Zane says Ellen will never be like them, pointing to the stars or see what they see, kind of building up that Magneto motif. Vin then sees his arms and the scars that lay on. And it is revealed that Zane was also at the pits of Half Sin. Zane leaves as Straff and Ellen finish their conversation. Anything for this part?
Just that it's so devious that he even has the scars from the pits. And like, has he ever seen these? Talk about the stars. Like, this reading this just makes my skin crawl. I don't like it.
Zane is very manipulative. And I like that he's kind of this foil for Kelsier in a sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like a messed up version of, oh, you can have Kelsier back, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Not really.
Ugh. But I really love when Vin Duraloom soothes away all of Straff's emotions. Like, that has to be such a power move. So now we've got a Straff point of view, and Straff questions himself why he let them go, because he wasn't planning on it, and thinks that it felt like death when Vin soothed him completely. Zane asks if he is scared, and Straff says to kill her at any cost. He reveals the secondary use of his mistresses, I don't want to think about either, and gives Zane a strike team to take her out. Straff then calls for Hosel again to feel like a man. Hashtag stab Straff. Anything for this part, other than just mutual hate of this man.
Okay, confession. I did not get to this chapter this week. I didn't have as much time as I normally would have. Does it actually call out that Zane was at the pits? Because when I read this, I interpreted that as he was cutting himself.
No, I believe there's direct you're at pits of Half Sin.
Okay.
Which Kay is going to check now.
She'll probably find the quote and put me in my place, and that's fine.
Vin definitely assumes he was at the pits, regardless of whether he was or not. And I think that's the important thing.
Yeah,
right,
he's supposed to be a warped mirror of Kelsier.
Yeah.
Like, maybe, like, I think he was at the pits. I definitely think Straff would send him to the pits to put him in his place.
That's my headcanon, too.
Yeah, but also, him doing it to himself just shows how crazy he is.
Well, and that's why I thought that, like, he's crazy enough to try and make himself look like Kelsier by taking, like, a razor blade to his arms. Like, that's another level of nuts.
So Vin says you were in the pits of Half Sin, like Kelsier, and then he looks away and she says sorry. So he never
confirms it one way or the other.
He never confirms it one way or another, but it's definitely implied, and I always thought that he was at the pits of Half Sin.
I think he's got a little bit of Straff in him, and he's
manipulating.
Yeah, I think it makes him look more sinister.
I would like that.
Way.
I would like that, but I feel like him actually being there, like, there's painting a picture to look like a picture, and then there's having a different version of that picture. Like, if he was making himself look like Kelsier, that would be different than him being a warped version of Kelsier. And I kind of like the warped idea better.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah. There's only one way to find out, and I don't have Brandon's phone number, so.
Final part. This is where things kind of go crazy. Ellie. Ellen is ready to celebrate, but Vin is solemn. He tries to compliment her, and it doesn't really work. And she says that not even Kelsier could have done it better. Which Ellen, having compared himself to Kelsier early in the book, probably is very happy about that. They arrive back, and Ham asks if it worked. Ellen nods and says they overlooked one of our greatest resources, which normally would be an okay comment, but knowing what Vin is going through kind of just reaffirms her worries that Ellen and the crew don't see her as her, and more so just as Lady Air, the Lord Ruler's executioner. Breeze laughs and calls Ellen brilliant when he says that he threatened Straff in the middle of his own war party. The group prepares to celebrate, but Doxson gives him a letter that reveals that every single assembly voted Ellen out of kingship. And I like the idea that they broke up over text, basically. Because at the bottom of the letter, it says, "Please forgive us for doing this over letter." And that's the end of part 2.
The final blow is struck.
Oh, I'm going to need those notes for the spoiler section. What am I doing?
So does that make Ellen the lame duck king?
I guess so. Maybe it's the same thing as like previous presidents.
Well, yeah, kind of, but he's not king yet. They haven't voted in a new one, so he's still king in
He's just the
waiting, I
person with the
guess.
most experience as being king.
Yes, which in the next few chapters we'll have a few funny moments that relate to that.
Yeah.
But that's for another time.
Yeah.
Shall we move into spoilers? Keep this
Unless
thing
anybody
rolling.
else has anything to say.
Before we go to spoilers, I was just gonna say, like, I really like how kind of everybody in this book is like this book. One of the themes I'm starting to notice most is just that sense of identity and like that struggling with identity that everyone has. Like, and this chapter is cool because it's like that being stretched as far as it's gone so far. And you can see like Vin is freaking out, like being caught between Zane and Ellen and the war and all that, and Ellen is freaking out. And this chapter was so cool to like. It was just a conversation, you know. They were just having dinner, but all of the tension and everything behind it and around it was awesome.
Mm-hmm. But even like, sorry, my brain is blanking. The identity thing. Ellen is stepping into his identity as king, and he kills it. Like this chapter, Ellen is not a weenie.
He's getting better.
He totally just threatened Straff in the middle of his own war camp.
Immediately after Straff got his proverbial pants dropped by his girlfriend.
Yeah, but he has a badass girlfriend.
He threatened Straff first.
And then used Vin to build it up.
I suppose.
He laughs straight at his father's face and calls him a pig.
Like I said, he's getting better.
I do want to say that we know Doxson doesn't really like Ellen all that much, but I was half expecting that the seal was not broken. I was half expecting it to be when I was reading this.
Oh, like he was reading the letters first?
Like he had already read it and was giving this to Ellen, maybe with a little bit of smugness.
That would be a cool little detail.
Yeah, but I also don't think that Doxson would be smug at this point about having Ellen deposed as king. Like, he doesn't really like Ellen being king, but he also knows that. I think he knows that the other people on the assembly would be worse.
But it could also mean maybe he could become the king.
Unlikely.
King Dox.
I don't think Dachshund really actually wants to be king.
Yeah.
No, he wants to be secretary.
Yeah.
He wants to be the hero of ages.
But, like, Ellen is definitely growing into his role. Like we saw even when he first left in John's chapter. He turns to him and he's like, hey, can you not call me Elle anymore? Can you at least go by Elend?
Yeah, I was going to mention that and I totally forgot. Because he's following Tindwyl's advice a little bit at a time.
I noticed after that Dachshund calls him Elend too. And I thought maybe it was kind of cool because I think maybe Dachshund is coming around to Ellen slightly, and by calling him Elend instead of Your Majesty, which he called him Your Majesty in the past, but I thought that was more sarcastically than like genuine. So calling him by his real name in this sense seems like it's more respectful than calling him Your Majesty.
And it's
I would
more, agree a little bit to that because like I think it's more so like he was calling him Your Majesty because he doesn't like Elend and he's like trying to like distance himself from Elend. And but he's slowly like coming around to like liking Elend more.
Like he
which is why
respects
he's
the
now
power.
calling which is why he's now calling him Elend as opposed to Your Majesty.
The position.
Yeah.
I would also say that we know Dachshund was hearing rumors about what the Assembly did even before, by the time he gives Ellen the letter. Maybe he had heard what happened and is no longer referring to him as Your Majesty because he has heard that Ellen is no longer His Majesty.
Because he knows.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. That makes me sad to think about, though. Maybe
Anything
he even
else
took pleasure in it. He was happy they voted him out.
Yeah. Anything else for the final, all of part 2, I guess? Like, maybe.
No, this part was a lot of talk. A lot of talk and setup and build up.
But there was a lot of good in it, too.
Oh, for sure. There was a lot of that moment of that tiny moment of comfort and normality, and that happens a lot in this section. But for the most part, it's the buildup of the tension of the armies and the siege and that kind of stuff.
And just when we think they got a good hold on everything that's going on, Elend is disposed.
Deposed.
Sorry.
They didn't put him in the trash.
Disposed. It's just...
Shut down all the trash compactors on the detention level.
I always wondered if R2 was like, I can let him suffer a little. Anything else, though?
Okay, you got anything?
Not really. I mean, these chapters are very good, and we get to meet another one of my favorite characters in these chapters. So, which is very fun. But I don't really have much else to add.
Okay, you took the first Ellen chapter. I'm going to take the first Allrianne chapter.
Ooh,
Yeah,
you rebel, you.
How do you put it? It's part 2 of the book, right? So yeah, it is going to be a lot of setup. It is going to be a lot of foreshadowing. But it didn't really feel slow, and it didn't really feel boring to me. Like, it was a lot of talking, but it was like people that I love talking to each other, and like these are some of the best chapters, like some of the best times just chilling with the gang that we get in any of the Mistborn books. So I liked it a lot.
Because there are, 6 parts and an epilogue in this one. So we're barely a third of the way through this book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And before I forget about it, next episode we will be covering Mistborn Part 3, King. and we'll be doing chapters 28 till 31. Wait, that's not right.
So
yeah, that
close.
is right.
Yeah,
No, that is right. Why have I written
Yeah.
it weird? Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, I just had it typed out weird. Okay, there we go. So we're going to be doing the next part in 3 sections as well. So we're sorry we're not going as fast as Final Empire, but the book is bigger. Just wait until we get to Stormlight Archive.
The book of endless pages. I mean, words of radiance.
We should all wear white
Oh, yes, that's brilliant.
on the prologue day. That would be awesome.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so ready to move on into the spoiler section?
Spoilers.
Spoilers?
Spoilers.
Okay, then thank you so much for sticking around so far this episode. We're going to go into the spoiler section now. We highly recommend that if you have not read this book, the entire series, or potentially even the entire Cosmere, you stop here because it's very likely that we will talk about everything and anything. However, if you are up to date on the story, feel free to stick around. It's likely we'll bring up details you may have forgotten or plot threads that are still yet to come. Please be sure to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, whatever it is on this video or audio, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions. We would love to hear from you. But this is where we leave you. Then I have been ReaderWarrior, and I have been joined by Swiggity Swoo,
Swiggity Swoo.
John,
Bye-bye.
and Kay.
Have a good one.
And this has been Cosmere Connections. And we're back.
Spoiler
Sorry,
time.
I didn't know you were going to say Swiggity Swoo.
No, you're good.
He's
I was
like a
just being a
Pokemon over there.
weirdo. Swiggity Swoo.
Reader.
Swiggity Swoo. Swig.
Reader.
Gosh, we should do a whole episode of that.
Oh, God, no.
Totodile.
2 hours later. Swiggity.
Oh, I think I want to die already.
Reader.
You
Warren.
swig guys want
Warren.
to swig, wrap it up. Swig.
So,
spoilers.
actually, these books, right? So,
Okay,
I think.
chapter-
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to
You're
say
doing it the
chapter
right way.
23, but I feel like you're having. If it's an overview, then we can talk about it first.
No, I was just going to go to the most major spoiler I knew of in this section, and it is definitely not that early, so we should do it your way.
Okay, chapter 23. So this is where we have Sazed, basically. The second that the Lord Ruler died, his control over the Koloss vanished. That was a nice little detail.
Yeah, showing that the Colossus were being controlled by him.
I'll save that one for the end because that one might be getting us into a conversation. Are the Mists heading to Vin, or is ruling them pulling them to him?
They're coming towards the Well of Ascension. They're being pulled towards where the
Gotcha.
Well of Ascension is.
Okay.
Yes.
And we've got a small comment about Sazed feeling tired from his trek, which could be just like him normally walking and all that, but I gotta wonder, does steel running also include he doesn't get aches or not tired, but he doesn't get aches or fatigue from that because that was stored in?
That's
Interesting
tough.
question.
That seems more like a pewter power to me. But that's not what Peter
Yeah,
stores,
because-
right?
Peter Stoller's strength.
Right.
And there
Yeah, if
is
he wanted to
wakefulness.
If he wanted to avoid the aches and pains, he'd have to store some health
Right.
and then tap that to heal the muscles that are being worn down as he runs.
Well, I feel like he would store that. I'm forgetting the word. Resilience with the steel running ability, because he is storing the ability to go fast, right? And like, if his legs can't even handle moving at that speed, then the ability seems kind of not at that
Pointless.
speed, but for that long.
I would assume that something like when he taps speed like that his muscles compensate in a way similar to how, like,
18
when he
works.
taps, well, similar to how, like, when he taps pewter, like, his body doesn't just get crushed under the weight of all of the muscles that he grows.
Mhm. So, small tangent. Do we think that if a person stored enough pewter to become, Godzilla-sized, and we know that the body cannot handle something that big, would it grow like an extra heart
I was actually just
or
thinking that
something?
because the Kolas basically grow too big to where their hearts can't support them.
Exactly.
But oh my gosh, you'd have to store so much strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would have to be, like, using it all at once.
Mm-hmm. You just get, he turns into. Shoot, I'm making a bunch of anime references this episode, but Escanor from the Seven
Oh,
Deadly Sins,
yeah,
where he just
yeah.
gets super buff and huge at times.
I mean, that's already what happens when you tap pewter.
Well, yeah, but there's buff and then there's Escanor. You do not understand. This man is the epitome of what a human being is, or could be. Anything else for this before I bring up my possibly long talk?
Lord Ladrian. I just like that Sazed calls Breeze by his name, and it's like, hey, that reminds me, he's related to Wax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Breeze is a full nobleman, not a half.
Yeah, I was confused by that, because I thought you guys said he was a full noble, but Allrianne says he's half.
He is.
What, did
Like,
he
that's-
lie?
That's been confirmed that he is a full nobleman. He might have lied to Allrianne.
Or
Tisk
maybe it's
tisk.
just... Let me check the thing.
I've already got it up here.
Because.
But Breezy is half scat.
He joined the underground at age 14.
Mhm.
He's a full-blooded nobleman. Yikes. So, I guess he lied to Allrianne? That's weird.
Yep, full-blooded noblemen.
That's a very weird lie to tell her. Especially considering how little Set likes
I wonder if it's a
Scott.
glitch.
So, in the annotations that Sanderson did for chapter 17 of The Final Empire, he makes a comment that Breeze is the only one of the crew who is a full-blooded nobleman, and that no one else knows that. None of the others know that.
It just says it is believed that he is half Scot, but it is truly a nobleman in hiding by the name of Edgard Ladrian.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just really weird.
So he
I
lies
feel like
to
that's
everybody.
I feel like that's a misstep by Brandon. I'm not going to say that often, but I feel like that is.
It kind of feels like it, especially if Ariane directly calls out that he's half ska.
Yeah, And like I can understand Breeze lying about it, but that doesn't seem like a lie he would tell, a noble man who hates
Yeah.
Ska's daughter.
It does seem odd.
Yeah. And my big argumentative is, why do we think that the mist can't enter the buildings? Is it a connection issue? Can somebody allow the mist in by speaking to the mist and saying you are allowed to enter here?
I'm a vampire. That's a really good question.
I don't think you can, allow the mist to enter in the...
I had not thought about that before. That's an interesting one.
Don't the mists froth in through the stained glass windows whenever they get cracked? Or crashed through?
Only in one scene, and
They're attracted to the allomancy?
yeah.
But we see that, even a simple tent that's being just put up is enough to stop it.
Which is still weird.
So I feel like that's definitely a magic thing.
Maybe could you make that happen if you had the power at the well? Could you program that into it?
Maybe, but I feel like maybe Rashek did it as a safety measure.
That's what I was thinking.
To keep the mist from killing people as the deepness.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
Anything on the copper mine?
I doubt it on that. But we should get going because we've been going for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So Swiggity, you are free to look at it. But chapter 24. My note says Alendi was a seeker. We know that. But Allomancers were extremely rare in classical Scadrial. Yep, that's it for chapter 24 for me.
Sorry, I didn't have anything spoiler for that one.
Since we're in the spoiler section talking about the mist, apparently mist can be captured in a pull stone.
Thought I heard that one because it is a source of investiture.
Right.
Yeah. Mist light. Preservation light.
Also, side note, but in chapter 23, I forgot to mention this earlier because I was looking at things about Breeze, is that Allrianne was definitely rioting their emotions during that chapter as well. When she comes in to, get them to be less suspicious of her.
When Breeze
See,
we were talking about Mother's Estate.
I don't know about that because Ellen does notice it. I think Vin burning bronze, copper always created a copper cloud, so she wasn't able to.
No,
just
she's
because
able
it wouldn't have been effective doesn't mean she wasn't doing it. Because after all, she wouldn't know that someone was smoking in there.
And we established that it only works on the person who's doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that just makes Ellen a lot cooler. I don't think she was really... I didn't get a writing sense from her this chapter. I definitely got one in this next chapter.
Oh,
25.
25?
She is the inverse of Breeze.
Yeah.
Breeze is never not soothing, so she is never not rioting.
True.
If you'll pardon my double negatives.
No, anytime she is on screen, she is rioting. Just about.
Yeah. Like in chapter 25, nice segue. She's definitely rioting Spook and making her want to help more and flirting with him.
100%. You see how he follows her around like a lost puppy.
She plays him like a fiddle.
And think she also might be rioting the crowd a little bit as well to try to keep them from attacking, or she's like ready to riot them to keep them from.
Yeah, for certain.
She definitely
I
helped
definitely
out.
thought that when she grabs Vin and takes her outside, that she's definitely rioting the crowd. I definitely thought that. Which, if Vin would just stop burning copper, she would be able to tell.
Also, 23, she might not have been rioting Elend, but I think she was definitely rioting Breeze.
Oh, 100%. She doesn't stop.
She's always riding Breeze.
Man, I have nothing really spoilery for 25 either, except for the Allrianne rioting spook.
And the Church of the Survivor, I guess, persists for a long time.
Yeah. It becomes a fixture of Scadrian culture.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
Yeah. But I don't think you were commenting on this can be cut out. I don't think, because the only real important scenes are just establishing what they are, and then with Sazed being called Holy First Witness.
Yeah, because
Like
that's
those-
not an important clue to how this thing plays out.
Yeah,
Like
those are two important ones. This one,
and
maybe.
and Vin finding out that that Demu is
yes.
part of the Church of the Survivor.
Yeah, but I feel like this could be shaved off. Maybe keep it in the extended version. But
I mean, if you think about the way it would play out in film, it would be like a 10-second scene. It would not take long.
yeah, but I do love Tindwyl, complimenting and helping Vin feel better.
Mm-hmm. And it also shows we learn a little bit more about Tindwyl, because Tindwyl, she is a mother, and as she said, she has raised lots of daughters. She says that later on, that she's raised lots of daughters.
Oh,
yeah.
Can we do a Tindwyl tangent really quick?
Yeah.
Of course.
Are we going to go off on even more tangents than usual tonight?
Would it be Cosmere Connections if we didn't? So in chapter 23, I've noticed that the part that ends where everyone's together, it seems like, or maybe it's not even in 23, but there's some chapter where Elend is saying like, oh gosh, I love Vin, but I just still don't understand her. And then when we see Tindwyl and Sazed talking, there's like, she says it multiple times, like, I just don't understand you, Sazed. And it's kind of
I like that.
Oh, that's cute, they end up getting together. And then
we didn't even bring that up.
No.
Swiggity is the connection master. Like, he picks up on all kinds of stuff like that we miss.
The subtle connections. But I always wonder, am I making connections that aren't really there?
I don't know. I kind of like that, how they both don't understand what their love really wants. I like that.
And then he like pulls his hand away there. That's because, I'm assuming that's because he's like a eunuch and he is scared of anything like romantic.
I think it more so has to do with him scared of his emotions for her.
He's scared of his emotions for her, and as we hear from him later on, like, he doesn't feel like he's fully a man, so he doesn't really feel like he could actually, like, give her everything that he feels that she deserves.
Aww.
Right.
You could say that he doesn't have the balls to confess his feelings.
You could.
I had to do it.
Leave the puns to me.
Well, then you better jump on him a little quicker next time.
I wasn't gonna go there. I'm proud of my wall-in joke.
Wow, we still went through with this podcast after that joke.
Yeah. You guys didn't hang up after that? Wow, we really in for the long haul.
I know, that could have been it right there.
Mhm.
What are we doing?
Okay. Does anyone have any other things to mention? Oh, we should talk about the epigraphs.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. We've got the terrorists rejected him, but he came to lead them. That one applies more so to Sazed. But,
Yeah.
John, these are not the prophecies, though. These are actually what Kawan is saying about Alendi.
I mean, yes, but they're parallels, right? Like, he's saying these things about Alendi because they were brought up in the prophecy.
I think these are more so, like, yes, they are parallels, but I think these are more so just comments on Alendi.
No, I think that these are. I agree with John.
These
I think
are
that they are
absolutely referencing the prophecy. That's the whole reason they're relevant. Because I mean, otherwise, who would say something along the lines of, "Oh, he didn't like war, but he became a great warrior, and then he didn't want to do this, but he ended up being just as good as anybody else." Like, it doesn't make sense to talk like that unless you have some other.
So he's
impetus for it.
describing all of the signs that Alendi fit for the
Right.
hero. That's what he's doing.
So this one, I guess, lines up with, "He shall defend their ways, yet shall violate them. He will be their savior, yet they shall call him heretic. His name shall be discord, yet they shall love him for it."
That's not a spoiler at all.
Well, that was actually in the Final Empire, and that's actually from the chapter where Sazed was introduced.
Right. Again, not a spoiler at all.
I hate Sanderson sometimes.
Well, he did say that he gave away the entire thing in the first couple of pages. So
Yeah.
The Hero of
said
Ages
that
was
about-
removed. Sorry.
I was gonna say he just said that about Stormlight as well. So
The Hero of Ages was removed from the Terrace people. He was not royalty himself, but came to it eventually. I mean, yeah, but
Yes, he did.
okay.
Because he ended up being next in line for Ellen's empire.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not denying that Saza doesn't fit these. I'm just saying what we've got with what Kawan is saying. I don't think they're necessarily the Hero of Ages prophecy. I disagree on that.
In these, one of them, it does say he was born a humble man, yet he married
The princess.
he married a princess, so he came to royalty, which is explaining how.
But that was
Yes.
they talk about that
showing
in the
things
Final Empire, I think, too, of him seeming to fit the prophecy, but not really. But people wanting it to be true so bad that they kind of overlook the differences.
Yeah. Like, even that can apply to Vin and how, she technically married a prince / king and got into royalty.
Well, that's the point. That's the point. Yeah. It's supposed to also, Vin is supposed to also be, it's supposed to be fitting to her as well, a little bit.
Yeah. He fathered no children, yet all the land shall be his progeny.
He commanded kings, and though he sought no empire, he became greater than all who had come before him.
Mm-hmm. He was forced into war by misunderstanding and always claimed he was no warrior, yet came to fight as well as any man. That's kind of the most obvious one, because we got Sazed repeatedly saying, "I am not a warrior."
Absolutely. And that's why I made a point to, during my chapter, be like, this doesn't sound like a Lendi or Rashid.
I feel like it is. I disagree with you on that one, because I feel like that is a Lendi.
And The last one in this chapter is, he was no simple soldier. He was a force of leadership, a man that fate itself seemed to support.
Mm.
Which says it was a leader. He never wanted to be.
Yeah.
But he kept falling into that role of being a leader in different ways. Kind of being forced into it.
In which we commented about when Straff, attacks the wall, Vin kind of gives that dominating leadership. Not necessarily through like actual orders, but just by, being there.
And she does that similarly when they're having their meeting with Straff and she blurts out that they don't have the ATM anymore. It's very much this idea of like, oh, she's not following the plan. She just goes by her gut. But usually, or sometimes that's better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else about the epigraphs before we move on to 26? Nope.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So 26 was John's chapter, which we have. I've always wondered, is Orsier's comments on Straff and how he was a horrible person, is Straff the one that would, break him till his body was completely broken and then give him a fresh
without
spirit?
question.
Yeah, that would not surprise me at all whatsoever.
Yeah. Tensoon, not Orsier.
Yeah.
I
think he's at the very least the most recent, committer of that type of abuse. Like,
yeah. We've got the single earring kept by Kelsier's suggestion. Fudging ruin.
yeah.
It was there the whole time.
I think this is only the second time it's been mentioned in this book.
But it's still right there.
Still mentioned,
it's
though.
absolutely there.
Yep. There's been lots of subtle hints to it.
Mm-hmm. We've got Tensoon. We'll probably take the time to drop another note to Zane.
Yes.
And I almost have to wonder, is that what Zane was doing? He went to go pick up the note, came back, and then found Vin outside the tent.
Probably.
Would that have been weird? It wouldn't have been weird if she showed up with Orsir to the meeting, right?
It would have been weird.
I feel like it would have, because in chapter yada yada, you've got Orsier tensed up at the sight of Zane. I feel like it would have just been like that. Maybe Straff would have commented. Straff definitely brought it up because he was planning on killing them right then and there.
Yeah.
But then again, does Straff know about Orsier Tensoon, the Wolfhound, or did he just tell Zane, "Here, take this conjurer, get inside their heads"?
It's a great question.
A lot of background detail that we'll probably never really know.
Yeah, because in this one, Ellen tells Vin he always keeps a conjurer.
Right. Which is supposed to be a clue to the reader at that point,
Yeah.
We might not know who the conjurer is yet, but we know who he's working for.
Mm-hmm. Which we actually got Tensoon name dropped back in the Final Empire.
We did.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Just once. Subtle genius.
He's so good. It's so good. No! It's just plain genius. Anything else for 26?
Nope.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. The fun one. 27. I have so many of them. It's literally like a page plus.
Go ahead.
No, this is what I read from.
Oh, jeez.
Earlier. Yeah.
I had such a small one. I don't know exactly which chapter this was in, but I know it was in this section. And it was like Vin and Ellen I think they're getting back from the meeting, and Spook is like, "Oh, so you're still king, huh? That's too bad. I was looking forward to getting
Yeah.
the job."
Uh-huh.
And it's
I was like, wow, that was a horrible time to say that.
yeah. But then it's funny because he actually does end up becoming like the Lord Mistborn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he ends up becoming emperor after.
There was hints the whole time.
We never saw
Oh my
it.
gosh. Crazy.
That is like the worst possible time too, though.
Yeah. Spook doesn't have great timing.
No.
I will say, Vin just completely spilling her guts out to Zane is almost as big as a misstep as Rashek keeping Elendi's logbook. Like, I dumbed it down really much to just like, oh, Ellen would never use me as a tool, but she like gives like a whole paragraph on, oh, Elenda's just cool, joking. We don't actually know how to do any of this. We've got none of that. What are you doing?
Yeah, she's definitely swung to the other side of the trust pendulum.
Like, we can't even blame it on like soothing and rioting, because most likely she's burning copper.
Why is she so ready to trust Zane?
Because
She feels
he's a Mistborn.
Yeah, and he's also clearly some degree of outcast, and he's that brooding emo boy that the goth girl is gonna go for.
Mm-hmm.
I think also it's that, like, she knows that, like, Kelsier took her in and trusted her without knowing anything about her other than that she was a Mistborn and could help. So she's kind of like doing something similar with Zane.
It is
because he's
Bizarro
also a
Kelsier.
Mistborn.
Yeah.
Like, that's what this keeps coming back to. It's Bizarro Kelsier, just over and over.
I keep getting Magneto vibes, though. It's like, we are the more powerful. We've got the power. The Homo sapiens kneel down to the Homo superiors. Which, great job to Charles Xavier for naming them Homo superior.
That's clever.
But he is kind of like Kelsier because they were both raised inside noble households, but were kind of outcasts. Both ended up going to the pits of Hassan, we think. I think Zane did. But it's just kind of like what they had, how it had turned them, what did it turn them into. For Kelsier, it had made him hate all of the nobility. For Zane, it made him crave that affection and that like confirmation that he's doing what he's supposed to do more, to the point where he's kind of like fanatically devoted to Straff in a way.
Do we think that if Kelsier got spiked, would he be more like Zane? Or would have Ruin done it differently?
Ruin would have done it differently.
Yeah, I tend to have...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to change the subject a little bit when it was time, but I just thought of something.
Feel free. There's nothing spoilery in this chapter.
Okay,
all that
so
much.
We're talking about, has Zane been to the pits? Has Zane not been to the pits? There's a chapter where he's talking to Straff, and Ruin is telling him explicitly to kill Straff. And the only way he has of getting that voice to calm down is cutting himself on the arm.
Yes.
I don't think he went to the pits. I think he just cuts himself to get Ruin's voice out of his head.
I think so too.
I disagree. Because, okay, I like it. I do like it. And it makes perfect sense for Zane to cut himself. But meta-wise, he is the Bizarro Kelsier. And for him to not have that.
Why do you keep making that comparison, but why does the Bizarro version have to get the same scars the same way? Wouldn't it make sense for them to have the same scars gotten a different way? To have them be self-inflicted, especially. Because
it's... Okay, imagine like the branching path. You've got them born fairly the same way, noble by Scott, and... You know, they both are kind of crazy. But to have them recombine at the pits at a point and then split apart shows that they lined up again at some way.
And there's also the whole like competition with their brother over like a woman thing. Because I remember Marsh was like in love with Mare.
Yeah.
See, there you go again, making all these connections that nobody else thinks about.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I like that.
Connected.
So, Swiggity and John, you guys are correct. The scars are from him cutting his arm and not from the pits of Hathsin.
Sorry, Kay, you cut out there. I didn't hear that. I think we should just move on. I'm a big enough man. Okay, you guys are right. I thought it would work better as he was actually there.
Well, my other theory was that he strangled a monster from the inside out.
Yes.
That's how you would do that.
Wayne is Zane. Hashtag prove me wrong. Change my mind. It's possible that he could have been there too, but I don't see him getting the scars that way. Like, it just doesn't. I don't know. It fits better to me with his personality, with the events of everything.
Because there's like, for me, there's forcing you to be like Kelsier, in which he's molding himself to be like Kelsier, kind of like have you guys seen like the Superman Red Sun?
No.
When he gets sent to Soviet Russia. Okay, well, in the movie, the United States basically sends in this person who's made to be like Superman, whilst you've got other characters who are, this is the same character, just took a dark path. And I kind of like that more than... But I guess it's just him trying to be more like Kelsier. I'll think about that as I see different Zane points of view then, from now on.
It's kind of like on 2.5 Men when they replaced Charlie Sheen with Ashton Kutcher.
They replaced Charlie Sheen. You know, National Treasure, son of Martin Sheen?
I'm sorry, Kay.
He was great in Wall Street.
Important, poignant commentary on the Cosmere universe.
No, I'm just tired.
Yeah, we should probably button this up pretty quick here.
Yeah, my joke, I don't think anybody understood.
Oh no, I totally got it. That's straight out of Hot Shots.
That went over my head.
Wow. I'm happy. Okay, then. Anything else for this part we gotta say?
No.
Okay, that's a resounding silent note. Well, that's going to be it for our show. Thank you very much for joining us in our ramblings and predictions. And please be sure to remember that there's always another connection. Have a nice night.
Take it easy.
Have a good one. they're still waiting on. They've only gotten 2 out of 6 pallets of books, so they're still waiting for the majority of the books to show up.
I just paid for mine.
So there, yeah, but it sounds like they've moved things to different manufacturers for the other books, like kind of spread it out more so that it's not all on the one, and it seems like those are actually like scheduled to be on time.
We have an army of manufacturers at any given time. We're single-handedly bringing printing presses back from the grave.
Yeah. But it sounds like those ones are actually on schedule.
Yeah, but at least it's better than what's going on with the White Sand Omnibus.
Oh, I finally got mine. I was very excited about that.
I heard they made a lot of changes.
I haven't read it yet. I need to read it.
Yeah, supposedly compared to the original 3, there are a lot of changes. They got rid of the radio.
They added in a little prologue for Chris. At the beginning. That's all I've read so far. I've just read that prologue for her.
Yeah.
And they took out the prologue for because the prologue was about the Sandmaster guy whose name I can't remember. But they switched that out.
And John brought it up when we did the Tress episode when we were talking about Aethers. They took away the ability to create water slattering or whatever it is. They deleted that ability.
That kind of makes sense, because we were talking about how you could use those 2 powers like incongru. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you could use them.
Well, not really, because like it's not like you can create water out of nothing. Like, you're still using the water from your body. Stuff, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute since I've read White Sand, so
I've never read it, so I can't say anything. I'll take your word for it. But I thought was the concept that you could create water, and then you use the water to power the Aether.
Yes, I think that was what we had talked about. As the concept.
Yeah. It's just Brandon doesn't usually like breaking his magic system within the magic system. He likes having that come from a different magic system.
But
oh, I went to go get the Well of Ascension at the European cover because the bus dropped me off right by the bookstore because I was out today. So I'm like, okay, I'll go get it. I rushed over to it, and I asked, and they did not have Well of Ascension on the thing. So I went to the front desk. Hey, do you guys have Well of Ascension? She was like, I know for a fact we do not. We had one copy for over a year. I had just put it in the discount bin, and somebody picked it up yesterday.
Whoa!
I was like,
dang it!
So I put it off for how many weeks? It was dirt cheap, and now I've got. At least I know there's a Cosmere fan somewhere.
Cyberpunk.